Welcome, welcome to the interview series with the authors from Journey of Riches, Whispers of the Heart. And today I'm joined with Chyla Charmaine. She is a heart-led facilitator, life coach, and a woman of many talents. And it's great to be chatting with you today, Chyla.
Thank you so much for this, John. I'm excited to have a chat too.
Yeah. And I loved your chapter, and you grew up in Canada in a mining town. Is that
Well,
right?
yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite a mining
Okay.
town. It is just a
Okay.
small
Right.
city, but it
Okay,
was
small city.
definitely, yeah, but it was definitely my world because I worked at the steel
Right.
industry in the steel industry. So I worked at a steel
Ah,
plant for
okay.
over 6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So the town's famous for the steel plant.
well, it's part of it because the steel plant, ironically, next to it has the buffalo. So you can kind of
Ah,
see it's definitely an area that's well known. Yeah.
okay. And so then you felt like you needed to escape that because you're no longer there. You're now in Queensland. I think every time I
Yes.
speak with you, you're in a different part of Australia or a different part of the world. So you're a
I
bit of a
am.
gypsy. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is when I learned years ago about spirit animals, and my friend says, "Let's find out what your spirit animal was," and it came up as Black Panther. But lately, I'm like, I think my spirit animal's a kangaroo. It has to be a kangaroo because all I do is
Okay.
like bounce constantly to all these different places, and I'm about to bounce again at the end of the week. So,
Oh, happy
yeah.
days. And yeah, kangaroo bouncing from one place to the next. You must meet some interesting people along your journey.
Definitely. Yeah, always. And it's just interesting because specifically in Australia, it's so multicultural. And so you're learning constantly about the different cultures. And what I've realized is that it seems to be that a lot of people that are doing soul searching, this is the place where they come. And even before I left my little city, it was the same. I was told actually by someone there who had gotten me first into meditation practices and chakras and sort of
Mhm,
opened up that world. He said, "You know that
mhm.
Australia is considered the heart of the world." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." But now that I'm here, I feel like there's truth to that because the seekers seem to come here, like the people that are looking for their hearts and their souls and trying to figure out a different way, and that is why I left my city. It was um just the environment felt like it wasn't expansive for me. It had just cracked the door open, but I felt like if I stayed there, the door would have just been that tiny crack and it never would have actually fully opened. So that's what it was about. It was about just getting the taste, and then the things that I did there in the beginning with even crystal healing is something that I was a part of there. They just sort of really started to activate things in my internal world, and I suddenly had this knowing that Australia was where I needed to be, and there was no question about it. It was like, oh, okay, I have to go to Australia. And that was the next step of the journey. So, yeah, it was just this very strong internal alignment that suddenly went, okay, here you go. Now let's open the door.
Oh, so you didn't have any family in Australia? You didn't know anyone had been to Australia? You just,
Not at
during a
all.
crystal meditation, did it come in a spirit animal, a bear,
No, it was so when I did the crystal
a
healing
panther?
course, it was there was
Oh,
a part of it where we activated our higher heart, and it was a
okay.
conscious choice that basically we were told you can choose to activate this while we're going through the other chakra centers. And if you do, know that once you activate this higher heart, that you're going to be in service to humanity for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And so that was a conscious choice that I made to be in service. And after that activation, that's when it was almost like little switches were going off internally. It was when I was working at the steel plant, I was drinking with the boys because we would switch back and forth from day shift to night shift every 2 days, working 12-hour shifts. Like it was quite a lot. And so we'd stay up drinking and try to have fun in between working at the steel plant.
Right.
And there was just something that started shifting in me where I just realized that when I was drinking alcohol, I didn't feel like myself. And I felt further disconnected from the truth of who I was. And the next day, it wouldn't be that I'd have regrets. It would just be like, I could have fun without this. And I want to feel more like myself, not less like myself. I don't want to suppress anything. And just instantly, there was this switch that was like, stop drinking alcohol. And I didn't touch alcohol for 13 years. Now, when I do, it's more because it's just like I'll have one or two because I feel like I know myself now and I'm connected with myself. And having one or two doesn't change my connection to myself. So I'm in a different
Mhm.
space now where I can take it or leave it and know where that line is before I feel like I'm in any kind of way suppressing, I guess. And then the same thing happened with just this feeling of not wanting to eat red meat. It was just this switch. And admittedly, I do now eat red meat, and particularly I make bone broth. But same thing, it's this journey that you go on, and there's these times where you feel aligned to, okay, this is the thing that's right for me. But when you keep coming back to your heart, which is what the book is about, you'll get different messages, and the heart will say, okay, this is what you needed then. But that's the thing I find is what that gives is when you're constantly tuning into yourself and you're checking in, you're getting a new signal. You're not staying in this outdated way of being, and you're also not staying in this space of, I think I know this, and getting stuck to this one path or this one way of being or this one, outcome, I guess. So yeah, so that was the journey of how connecting in with myself really started. It was just being opened up to that kind of a world of tuning into vibration and all the fun stuff that the health and wellness and spiritual world has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for me, I kind of find it funny that it's actually not mainstream because it just seems so natural and normal to me. And I know that you did some training with Benjamin J. Harvey, who's in a film that I just was at a film festival in Sydney. And so his work is a lot about embracing this is, high frequency, raising your consciousness, opening your heart. It's just a normal way of being. Do you do like you have a practice or something that you do on the daily or
Yeah, so
helps
I
you
work,
listen to your heart?
yep. So I work with the Embodied Ching, and that's even what I was doing before talking to you
Right.
was
Yes.
there's the eight elemental forces of nature in the I Ching, and one of those is heaven. And so my mentor taught me muscle testing. And so before even when I come into things that for me feel like I need to be more connected with myself, I muscle test and I ask, what do I need so that I'm really in alignment? And funny enough, when I have these particular important conversations, it always comes up with heaven. So heaven is basically our soul connection. So I was running alchemy and doing heaven movements before chatting with you, which is exactly what came up the last time that I wanted to do something that was really important and have important words. So yeah, that's my favorite practice because it's very fast as well. It just takes a few minutes and then you feel like you're a lot more connected with your self, like your true self.
That's where it's at. Yeah. How do you know if you're aligned with your true self? Like there's synchronicities, you're thinking about someone and then they contact you, or what is it for you when you feel
Um,
aligned with you?
that's a good question. I Synchronicities is one thing, but I guess it's just like feeling like I have flow is a big part of it. Like when I'm not listening and I'm not in alignment, things don't really go smoothly for me. Like if I'm
Right.
rushing, if I'm rushing and I'm always in my mind, it's so obvious to me because that's when things get really frustrating, and it feels like internally it feels like I'm like two steps behind if I'm in that state of being. But if I feel like I'm in alignment with myself, it doesn't feel like I'm tripping over my feet, and it doesn't feel like I'm rushing or working against everything. It's like you just feel like, oh, okay, I did that thing, and that's how it was just natural and it was quick. And that's what it was like when I wrote my book chapter, actually. I could feel that alignment because I didn't have to think about it and I wasn't two steps behind. And it was just a very easy, natural process of, okay, I'm just sitting down, and it just very naturally flowed out. And then that feels like alignment for me when I'm not questioning, I guess is, yeah.
Right, yeah. And does it just feel like as you say, like a knowing, like a vibration, or does it sometimes feel like a whisper?
Um, I would say sometimes it's hardly even a whisper, even. It's like sometimes I feel like I'm just not even there, and I'm just connected into something and I'm just moving
Right.
through it. Like
Hmm.
it's like when I'm in alignment, it's like actually, I guess when when I'm trying to connect in, but I'm not there yet, I'll be
Right.
asking a lot of questions. So internally, it'll be like analyzing, like, why is this like that? And why is that like that? And how did that
Right.
happen? And it's a lot of just like questioning everything. And I feel like
Right.
what happens when you come into that alignment space is there's something that just tells you the answer. And so that is like, yes, that's that whisper aspect of like suddenly you'll be in the shower when you're not questioning, or just when you first wake up in those early moments, or in a dream. I do dream interpretation as well. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're just like, okay, here's the answer. And you're like, okay, well, that came from a really deep place, so that must be the real answer here. Yeah, so it's kind of when all those questions and those noise start to just fall
Hmm.
away is when I'm in alignment. And when those questions come flooding back and I start asking too many questions and I start really doubting myself, that's the obvious sign that I'm not in alignment anymore.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. It's almost like what you don't want comes first, and when you let go of that, then the flow state drops in. We drop into a flow
Yeah.
state. Is that how it is? Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think that for me, it's also just the more that I learn about myself and my operating system, that makes it easier for me to connect with it. So
Hmm.
before doing Ben's course, I did learn some little aspects about, symbols or the way that you speak to the subconscious.
Hmm.
And there's some things that I started to learn about how I could communicate with myself, but I wouldn't say I knew it nearly as well as then after I became a coach and learned it more deeply on how I could talk to my internal self. So for me, I guess it's not just about feeling the alignment anymore. And that's the difference. That was a version of me before, but now it's like I actually have tools that, like, for example, let's say I didn't get a dream that night to interpret, but I wanted to talk to my subconscious and like, hey, I actually really need some help here. There's a way that I now know how to do that, which I was taught by Ben. And so
Hmm.
I can actually choose to tune into that using the alchemy, using the coaching tools. And I don't have to wait for it anymore like I used to. And I think that's what helps tune the noise down, because before it's like I might have asked a lot of questions and then I'm like, okay, I'll get the answer, or I'll feel the answer, or something in my day will tell me. But to be able to cut that out, it's and go directly down to the source, is that for me is what really was my game changer, I think, in yeah, getting my answers, feeling like my answers were coming when I needed them. Yeah.
tapping into a deeper part of yourself. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Nice. And have you ever made a decision that was a heart-based decision that didn't turn out so well?
Ah, yes. And I think,
Okay.
well, I
Because a
think
lot
the
of people
thing is,
say, well, if you're making a decision from the heart, you can't go wrong. And
mm,
so yeah, it's interesting.
I think, okay, well, I guess the first thing that came to mind was more like, have I made it from the gut feeling or the feeling of like I'm
Right.
in alignment rather than, I guess, from the heart? And perhaps that's the like sometimes I feel like it's very hard to differentiate between that, like what your gut feeling is and
Okay.
what your heart feeling is. And so sometimes I feel like there's two channels that get a little bit confused. And so a lot of people and myself included, there's been times where I've thought, oh, my gut's telling me this, so that must be what my heart wants, for example. It's
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
I always kind of associate that gut feeling as the heart's protector, I guess you could say.
Right. Okay. Well, they're connected. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of times when a decision hasn't been made right, it's because there's that protector is there creating fear and we're
Mhm.
looking at as like a lot of times we look at it as, oh, okay, this isn't what my heart wants. And then when that fear and that anxiety calms down, we're like, oh, okay, this must be what the heart wants. Like, so for example,
Right.
in past relationships, when I've responded in that way, and I'm like, okay, this person makes that the gut calm down and warms my heart, right? And and then I've gone with that, and
Hopefully.
it's yeah, and it's turned out really badly, and it's because
Okay.
my gut feeling is actually wired wrong from having CPTSD. And so CPTSD has a way of mixing up the wires and the communication and telling us like that it kind of basically the subconscious operates in a way that what is comfortable for us and what is familiar is what it will recreate in our environment and our life and our reality, even though it's causing immense suffering. And so those wires get really crossed. And it's for me, that didn't start changing until I recognized that and I learned that aspect of myself was there and creating that. So once I saw that pattern, I could start actually questioning it. And then through the coaching and through the embodied I Ching, because personally I think they work really complementary together. And the I Ching puts you into that grounded soul alignment. But then when you're in that space, then I still have to apply the coaching tools so that I can change the pattern and actually make a real difference. So yeah, I feel like my heart was always confused because my old patterns and my old operating system were not allowing the heart to actually speak properly, if that makes sense.
So what did you go through? What did you have? CPSP?
So
What does it stand for?
CPTSD, it's
Oh, okay. I haven't heard of that
yeah.
one before. Okay.
Okay, well, it's like PTSD, except the C means it's complex. So it's
Ah, complex. Okay. A deeper layer
yeah,
to it. Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
And so psychology has different ways of um basically once when you're diagnosed with CPTSD, there's also different layers within that. So based on how
Right.
many, it's called ACEs, and however many ACEs you have determines sort of predicts what you're going to be dealing with in your future. And so that's kind of actually in a nutshell what my chapter is really about is it's I've literally been through everything on the CPTSD scale and experienced everything on the
Okay,
scale.
right.
And so that's really what the beast kind of took me through in my chapter is um
Okay.
yeah, and so it that couldn't stop the CPTSD and the triggers and the emotions couldn't stop until I was able to recognize that I was in control of stopping it. But when you don't know that you're not in the driver's seat of your own life, you really can't do anything when you're just, you know, going through the motions and not really taking any responsibility, which you can't really take responsibility if no one's telling you that you have to take responsibility, right? So that's kind of what Ben's program
Okay.
also gave me was like
Yeah.
just
Sense of
understanding.
responsibility.
Yeah, it was opening up my eyes to the next layer of, hey, this is like, we talk about the drama triangle and just knowing that layer of the drama triangle and having that awareness of, oh, okay, like this is me. I'm in that triangle allows you to then step out of it when you recognize it. But if you're always just going through life and you got the blinders on and someone else is driving your car, it's like, yeah, and that's how the heart works too. I mean, if you're just got the blinders on and you're driving through life, you're not going to hear your heart. You're not going to connect with your soul. You're just always going to be coming from your patterns and your conditioning and what everyone else has told you you're supposed to be doing. And yeah, it's a very different way of living when you start to actually see with awareness and then take control.
So, what happened to you for you to have the CSPT? Is
The,
that right?
the CPTSD. The CPTSD is based off of childhood experiences. So that's what ACEs are.
Okay.
So
Okay.
ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. And
Okay.
so how it feels is when you've had traumatic events happen at a young age, there's I don't know if it's studies that I've heard that are from psychology, but it's in the psychology world, there is a belief that your mind and your emotions can stay trapped at that age. So it's like you don't
Hmm.
quite develop in the same way that someone said who hasn't gone through those traumas develops in.
Right.
And so it's like people often see me as a single person and they're like, oh, you only have to take care of yourself. But what people don't
Right.
see with CPTSD is it's kind of like depression
Reparenting
where,
yourself. Okay.
yes, exactly. So it's
Uh,
like on, you're often going through life with a passenger in your
mhm.
car and you
Okay.
have this child that's sitting in your car with you and nobody can see the child and nobody knows you're parenting the child and nobody
Right.
nobody has any idea. But for someone with
Right.
CPTSD, it's what it feels like. There's this child that will suddenly start flailing and kicking and screaming. And that is why it was so important for me to find the path that I found because you're dealing with this on your own and you don't have mentors and well you don't have parental mentors in your life to guide you through this.
Mhm.
And so that's the missing element is a lot of people that have diagnosed CPTSD, they didn't have parents to show them the proper way to deal with a child that's kicking and screaming. So you're now
Right.
this adult that's supposed to know how to deal with this child in this
Working the right
car
emotions.
and
Okay.
you just have no idea. And so to be honest, that's what in a nutshell that 10-week 8-week coaching program. My program is 10, but Ben's is classically 8. And
Okay.
in that program, that's what you're really kind of honestly learning is it's like Ben
Right.
describes this very well in terms of there's three aspects of the mind and our reptilian brain, which is the one that activates and causes the fight or the flight. That is the first child that's kicking and screaming and flailing, and you have to
Right.
teach that child to stop flailing. And so, interestingly enough, it's like classically they wouldn't probably say, hey, do a program like this for CPTSD, but it really
Right.
was one of the biggest helpers for me to actually unravel some of those. It's it there's a part of it that unravels the trigger that causes the child to start kicking and screaming,
Right.
right? Yeah, so it's just helped me to
Okay, sounds good.
really, yeah. So it helped me to really understand how to actually be a parent and be a grown-up because it's
Self-parent
take
yourself, reparent yourself. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, nice. And it's kind of like teaching yourself like emotional intelligence, like EQ, it develops your EQ.
Yes, and it's it is
Completely
EQ.
different.
Well, I think it's similar because I did study emotional intelligence when I was studying Ayurveda, but
Uh,
this I would say is a bit different because with emotional intelligence, you can actually train yourself to have a higher EQ. And you train yourself from a very mental space and a conscious space of, okay, these
okay.
are the ways that I can improve. And if I react to this way, then that will change. But I went through a really powerful and important lesson when I was doing the breakthrough program training. And it was I had a very, very strong trigger come up when I was in a session, and I had asked for the mentor to help me through the emotions because I had tried, like from my rational mind, I had gone through all the steps of, all right, let's put myself in that other person's shoes, let's change my perspective. I kind of treated it from the angle of emotional intelligence, but I could not get the emotion to quit and calm down. So the mentor came in and he ran me through a perspective process. And at the end of that process,
Yeah.
I ended up crying and releasing the emotion. But everything that came up in that process was exactly what my rational mind was telling me before the process. So at the end, I said, I don't get it. I was telling myself everything that we uncovered when we went through the process with you. Why didn't it work? And he said to me, because you were trying to resolve a problem at the conscious mind when the problem was the
Uh,
subconscious mind. So you were working with
right.
the wrong layer and you can't because if you don't get to that subconscious layer, then you're not actually getting the source of where the problem was created. And that's what we do in the program. There's a point when we get to in that program where I take people through these processes and they go down to that subconscious layer, and when you reach that subconscious layer, whatever is connected to that particular event, it unravels your trigger for all of the experiences, not just that one. So it's like the child in the car experience, right? If there was a trauma that was imprinted inside of me that keeps making that inner child kick and scream, by going to the subconscious layer that made that child feel that way in the first place, you can get rid of that and then it unravels the whole system, if that makes sense. And
Yes, I studied that. It sounds very similar to a technique that I learned when I was did my NLP training and became an NLP trainer in neuro linguistic programming, which deals wholly and solely with the subconscious mind. And they call it timeline therapy, where you go just before an hour before the event, load up before up above it, and it's kind of like you're looking at releasing those experiences. And it could be fear, guilt, shame, anger, hurt, and the idea is it releases, all that sort of trapped emotion. But it's not somatic, so I feel like the body can still hang on to these traumatic experiences, at least with the NLP technique. So it doesn't have a somatic component to it. So
yeah,
I found it.
well,
Yeah.
I still haven't fully wrapped my head around what somatic means but I do
Yeah.
know that in the process that
Trauma trapped in the body.
yeah, okay.
Trauma trapped
So
in the body. Yeah.
so I think that is what Ben's process does include is going into that aspect. And it's something that there's a new process as well that we've just learned, and it touches on that as well. And it's something that you
Okay.
can use all the time. So anytime that you're
Mhm.
experiencing any kind of emotion, even like an adapted process now that you come into your breath and you go into where in your body you're experiencing that emotion. So is that kind of sounds somatic if you're going to the experience in your
Somatic
body?
is more you do experiential exercises. So, like you
Oh,
will, yeah, bring it up in the body and you might shake it out and you might do like a felt sense type of exercise. So, it's more experiential in nature rather than sedentary and mental. So, you're
okay.
actually, yeah, you could be trapped in a certain part of the body and you're doing some vocal exercises to remove it out. So it could be stuck in the throat and you're doing some vocal sounds to release it. And yeah, you might be doing some chanting and then
Okay.
stomping the feet up and down. You're grounding it and releasing it. So,
Ah,
but
okay.
there's
So
so many different
somatic
types
is,
of somatic
yeah, okay.
trapped in
But
the
it's more
body. Yeah.
physical. It's more like movement based by
Yes.
the sounds of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Experiential.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd
Yeah.
say then it's not like that. It's not like
Oh,
movement,
okay.
vocal. It's more,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's still amazing. Yeah, you still go through the
It
process.
is
You're still
still amazing.
releasing something. Yeah. Well, because it's
Yeah.
that's because Ben also we trained under the same trainer, Christopher Howard, and so Ben did his training with part of his training with Chris. I know he's done a whole bunch of different modalities and things like that, but that component is an NLP component, so it's neuro linguistic programming is the official term. So yeah, I know Ben's done training in that component and a myriad of
Yeah.
other things as well. So yeah.
It must be because, yeah, his stuff is
I think he just
it's got its own
combines
flavor.
different
Yeah.
things. Yes, 100% it
Yep.
has its own flavor. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's really cool. And now you're offering that for people as well that want to release patterns of behavior that kind of go to, they might be in a stressful situation. And in that stressful situation, they go to a pattern behavior that maybe they did when they were 7 or 6 or 8. And so you're helping them scratch the record on that pattern of behavior and then instill other ways of being so they can respond differently. Is that kind of it in a nutshell?
Yeah, it is. It's for well, when you're going through the program, you're really focusing on one particular goal that is really important to
Yeah,
you. And so
yeah.
that's where you start. And then we start to unravel if that goal is aligned with your values. Once you sort of
Right.
look at, okay, yep, this is or this isn't, and then you adjust, then you keep as you're
Mhm.
working towards the goal. There's a point when you actually where we're actually unlocking, okay, what are the emotions that are stopping you from attaining that? And so it's not, that's kind of more where the program is taking you. It's like it's
Yeah.
going to whatever pattern is stopping that goal from happening. And then
Hmm.
yeah, and then carrying forward and yeah, not having that block you pretty much.
Yeah, that sounds great. Is that kind of similar to the work that you were doing when you were doing retreats? And one of the reasons why I invited you to contribute to the series because I saw that you were running like heart-led retreats. Is that similar type of work?
So the heart-led retreats were all the embodied teaching. So only the embodied
Okay.
teaching. Yeah. So the
Okay. And now you're
coaching.
combining both.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not even that I'm combining them necessarily. I'm in something that I am working on behind the scenes is there's one pillar of the embodied I Ching, which is divination. And
Right.
that's what I'm combining with coaching because the coaching can't be done in person. So if I'm doing Ben's program, I pretty well need to be like I do it over the phone. And that's so that the other
Okay.
person can't actually see me while we're doing the work. Because a lot of what happens
Okay.
with well, what can happen is it takes away the empowerment from that person. So if you're the person who's
Right.
looked at as the facilitator and the person who's running things, then they can think that their experience and their transformation, you can say, is coming from you instead of from themselves. So it
Okay.
keeps the method of empowerment on the person who's actually going through the program and the processes. But with the embodied I Ching, that is a workshop where again, it's about empowering. So that's the difference. And when I'm running these workshops, I'm not doing it in the same way that you would go to a yoga class where, okay, people are just coming to the class, they're doing the thing, and then they're leaving. I'm actually teaching people how to work with the tools every day themselves, which is exactly what the coaching program does too. You're actually teaching people tools that when they get it to the end of the program, they can go into life and they can keep repeating those tools. So all of the work that I do and what's different about it is it's about empowerment and it's about teaching. And I think a lot of facilitating is lacking in that nowadays, which is fine. I mean,
Mhm.
some people want to show up, they don't want to be taught. They just want to do the thing and that's that. But it's just not how
Yeah,
I operate. Like I teach people how they can do movement every day to open their heart, or a practice that every day they can use to tune in to when they need to talk to their soul or get a message from their subconscious that they aren't alone when they leave my program or my course. So, yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So you're empowering the individual to then use the tools and yeah, bridge the gap and connect in on a deeper level.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, especially I want to help people like myself, especially who do suffer from CPTSD. And because what it does is it really isolates you. So it isolates you from the rest of the world. And if I haven't taught someone, say, like who's, in that kind of circumstance, how to actually do it themselves, then when no one's around and they're isolated and they're disconnected, they're not they're not going to be able to do anything about it. They're just going to sit in that.
Uh,
Mm.
yes. Okay, cool. Well, that's good. So yeah, you're basically empowering them. Cool to make a shift. So is there like, can you recall a time where, you followed your heart and just led to something wonderful or a profound experience for you?
Yes, I'd say that's where I am now. I had that
Okay.
the most recently was probably the most profound experience I've had, actually. It was one of the best
Right.
days I've had in my life. And that was, just all of the different choices that have led me up to it. But it was when it was the eclipse. So, did you see the full moon with the eclipse? It was red moon.
I've seen a few. Yeah, this year. I think there's been two this year already. So
Yep. So
yeah.
it was basically, I was doing a lot of my bouncing and doing, and I was very much in my headspace doing a lot of
Okay.
mental work on the computer. And obviously there was a bigger part of me that was operating in the background because I was working my way through some really big challenges. And
Yeah.
for some reason, when the waves come in my life, they seem to come very high velocity and they get quite overwhelming. And I'm always trying to hold on because I know that the wave comes down and that, everything will settle and there's always that balance, right? But I was waiting for this wave to come down. I'm waiting and I'm like, okay, this wave's up there for a long time. Like, when is this going to calm down? And but everything was just doing exactly what it needed to do. And without knowing, I ended up at my favorite campground when this full moon eclipse was occurring. And
Oh,
yeah, and again, it was these things that felt like they were misalignments and challenges. They kept happening to then push me right down to like my favorite spot by myself. And I ended up making a campfire and sitting and watching the eclipse. And that may not sound that significant, but the reason behind
oh,
why that was one of the best nights I've ever had in my entire life is because for months when the wave was really high and I was having challenges, everywhere that I was going was like so much challenge with noise, really loud noise following me everywhere. And
right.
like just extreme heat in the summer and struggling to have places to live and just so many things that were like pushing against my back. And and when I had been to this campground a few times, there was always another thing that was pushing against my back, even there. But this was the first time in months where I was sitting there and everything externally in and internally was perfect. And when I say
Yeah.
perfect, I mean like internally there was no questioning anything. There was no wanting anything. There was like
Right.
nothing. It was just
Hmm.
for me like that's when I feel like the alignment is there because I didn't force being there. I didn't even know the full moon was that was a thing. And like it wasn't something where I consciously went, okay, I'm gonna go to this place and I'm gonna see the moon and it's gonna be like this. And so when I'm just riding the wave, but I keep checking in here, even though the wave is like way up here, when you check in and when you keep tuning into your own channel, even though you like I think this is the thing. People think that when you're tuned in and when you've got your connection to your heart, there shouldn't be waves. The waves shouldn't be there. Life should just be easy and I should be happy all the time. And unfortunately, that's just not the case, or at least not in my experience. And
Hmm.
so for me, it's like it's more about tuning in and connecting in as I'm in the wave and trusting and trusting and
Okay.
trusting and trusting. And the trust for me isn't there if I don't know how to actually connect in.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, that's actually why I even called my business Harness Your Happiness, because it's not called happiness. It's not because happiness is just this thing that we think we should always have. It's called Harness Your Happiness because that's what I feel like we do all the time. We have to harness our happiness and we have to keep consciously taking that, and otherwise, again, going back to not being in the driver's seat, like if you're not choosing happiness and choosing the things that are going to lead you to happiness, then you're not going to find your heart. You're not going to be able to hear it. You're not going to really get anywhere. So yeah, it was just constantly saying, okay, I'm going to choose to keep trying. I'm going to choose to do my tools even when things are not great and even when things are pushing against my back. And even if
Mm.
that doesn't give me happiness instantly, if I just keep showing up and I just keep doing what I know will get me there, that to me is choosing my happiness and tuning into my heart.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's solid. And saying yes, I mean, you could have said, "Oh, I'm not going to go camping because last time I was there, I had this big thing, the waves, this is representation of challenges in life, right? And I have this thing in my life I don't feel like I can overcome. I don't think I can get it above this wave." You could have said, "Oh, no, I'll wait till things settle down in my life to say yes." But you didn't do that,
Mm,
right? You had this thing in your life that you said yes anyway, and then this alignment, this event found you, or you
exactly.
synchronized with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is the synchronicity was there running in the background the whole time. Like
Yeah.
when you kind of I feel like what's part of it is when I learned how to speak to my subconscious and through the program, you are the one
Hmm.
who's telling your subconscious, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what my future is going to look like. When you get that clarity and you get that alignment, and when I'm just using my daily like embodied teaching practice without going outside of that, then
Hmm.
you're operating it's like my MacBook that I'm looking at right here. Your body
Hmm.
is a computer, but you have to have the
Hmm.
right program that's running it. And for
Right.
me, like my subconscious knows who I am. It knows what I want. It knows exactly what I'm going for, and it knows what my heart desires. Like it knows what makes my heart tick. And so I didn't have to plan for the eclipse. My subconscious knows she's going to want to see this. she's going to need this. After all of that, which had all of its lessons in it and all of its blessings, the wave came with not just the wave, it came with all the good things too. It's just it knew exactly what I needed at the end of that wave going down. So
Yeah, that's perfect alignment. That's great. So, how can people learn more about the work that you do and so they can get aligned with their subconscious and not feel like they have to control and manage life?
yeah, so I'm starting to finally get a good traction going on my social media and actually posting to share
Okay.
these things because I'm very, very good at
Okay.
hiding when I'm creating. And
Right.
I've got a couple of big launches coming up in the near future. So just harness your happiness on social media or on
Okay.
my website is harnessyourhappiness.life.
Harnessyourhappiness.life. And they can follow you on social media, Harness Your Happiness as well. We can put those links down below this interview as well. So, well,
Yeah,
that's
awesome. Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey and how you've managed the different challenges in your life and the technique and program that you've developed. Yeah, it makes complete sense. And yeah, hopefully, yeah, you get a lot of people in your new program. It hasn't launched yet, right? It's just about to launch.
The coaching program is launched, but the part that
Okay,
hasn't launched yet is a whole new. I'm kind of in some ways being like Ben in that I've learned so many things,
okay,
but then they led me
yes,
to my own method, which is the mirrors, and the
okay,
mirrors is going to be what I'm launching, which is my signature. Honestly, the mirrors is what came through when I was doing my heart connection and the
okay,
heart workshops and all the things.
nice.
So.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
it's my
cool.
piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, nice. Okay, sounds great. Yeah, cool. I think you've got to have your own signature to a program. So that sounds really empowering for people. Cool.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, nice to spend some time with you today. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I feel like everything that needs to come out came out.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it was pretty smooth. And yeah, if you'd like to put the links down below, and of course, if you want to get more of these interviews, subscribe to the channel, and we'll send them your way.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this chat today.
Thanks, Charlotte. You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.